Welcome back. We start our news bulletin from Brazil, where 1,071 new deaths are recorded from the coronavirus, taking the toll to over 71,000, with more than 1.8 million cases. In the US, the number of infections has crossed 3.2 million after over 66,000 people tested positive in the past 24 hours. Globally, the death toll has crossed 564,000 and 12.6 million infections. This report has details.
Americans are neck-deep into the coronavirus pandemic, with the number of deaths and infections surging every day. In Latin America, thousands of new cases continue piling up in Brazil, with almost 300,000 now infected in Mexico. The country reported 539 deaths and over 6,000 infections in the last 24 hours. While the number of infections spikes in the US, New York is witnessing a 4-month low in hospitalized patients. President Donald Trump, for the first time, donned a face mask visiting a military medical facility.
Well, I'll probably have a mask if you must know. I'll probably have a mask. I think when you're in a hospital, especially in that particular setting where you're talking to a lot of soldiers and people that in some cases just got off the operating tables, I think it's a great thing to wear a mask. I've never been against masks, but I do believe they have a time and a place.
Taiwan has wrapped up an annual film festival as it stages more public events after containing its COVID-19 outbreak. South Korea's new virus cases have bounced back as cluster infections in Seoul and the southwestern city of Gwangju continue to increase. The country reported 44 new cases, including 21 locally transmitted infections, raising the toll to 13,417. Meanwhile, India's Bollywood demigod Amitabh Bachchan, his son Abhishek Bachchan and his daughter-in-law Aishwarya Rai Bachchan have tested positive for COVID-19. India's cases have surged to third highest in the world, with over 849,000 infections now.
8.2 lakh cases total, and that's amounting to 23,000, around 23,000. They are big numbers. Every person counts, every body counts, and every death is a definitely blot on the healthcare system of the country.
Meanwhile, South Africa has reported a record over 13,500 new cases, taking the toll to over 264,000. Public hospitals in the country are expressing concerns about shortages of available beds and medical oxygen as cases surge. Over in Australia, Victoria State has reported 273 new cases, marking a week of triple-digit increases in the infections.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 74 more people have died of COVID-19 in the past 24 hours, raising the toll to nearly 5,200. The Health Ministry says over 2,500 new cases were detected overnight, taking the tally to nearly 245,000. The ministry said over 156,000 people have recovered from the virus so far. It said more than 2,100 patients are in critical condition. The province of Sindh is badly hit by the virus, with nearly 104,000 infections, while Punjab has reported over 86,500 cases. The ministry said over 1.5 million tests have been conducted so far. Indian troops have martyred another youth in occupied Kashmir, raising the toll to 9 this month. The occupation forces martyred the civilian during a cordon and search operation in Supur town of the Baramula district. Meanwhile, Indian police have arrested pro-freedom leader Ashraf Sahrai under the Draconian Public Safety Act in Srinagar. The occupied valley has been under New Delhi's crushing curfew and communications blackout for the past 342 days. The Afghan government has slammed the Taliban for a recent escalation in violence and said the group must enter the peace process in a meaningful manner. In a presidential palace spokesman Sadiq Siddiqui said the violence has damaged people's expectations for peace. He urged the Taliban to renounce violence and work towards peace. In response, Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid said that instead of leveling accusations, Kabul must complete the process of releasing prisoners as soon as possible. He said the war is continuing because the group has not received another choice. On Saturday, at least 9 civilians were killed in separate incidents in Ghazni, Faryab and Maidan Wardak provinces. The UN Security Council has passed a resolution to extend the trans-border humanitarian aid for Syria on its fifth attempt. President of the Council, Christoph Yüzgen, said the mechanism of assistance will continue through a single checkpoint on the Turkish border for 1 year. Yüzgen said 12 of the member states voted for the resolution, while 3 countries, including Russia, China and the Dominican Republic, abstained.
When you report home, June and Dimitri, just tell them that the German ambassador asked how those people who gave the instructions to cut off the aid of 500,000 children, if they are ready to look into the mirror tomorrow.
Now in Tel Aviv, thousands of Israelis have staged a demonstration against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's mishandling of the coronavirus crisis. Police limited the number of people allowed into the Rabin Square, citing social distancing restrictions. But clashes erupted between the police and protesters, who threw rocks and bottles at them and vandalized public property. Protesters slammed the soaring rate of unemployment, which has reached 21% since the partial lockdown imposed in March.
Came to protest against the Israeli government that doesn't give us the money. We didn't work through all the 4 months of the corona. We didn't gain any money. I closed my business. I fired all my workers, and we are all sitting at home without any money.
In Serbia's capital city of Belgrade, protests marked by violence continue for 5th consecutive day. Thousands have gathered in front of the parliament building, protesting against President Alexander Vučić and government policies. Pelting police officers with rocks and signal flares, protesters called for President Vučić to step down. Riot police have been deployed outside the parliament building to prevent demonstrators from storming it. Vučić has accused his political opponents of orchestrating protests. The protests broke out after the government announced a plan to impose a weekend coronavirus curfew in Belgrade. The government retreated its decision, but the protesters have not ended the demonstration. In Russia, thousands have marched in the far eastern city of Khabarovsk in support of its regional governor, who is being held in pre-trial detention. Sergei Fogal was detained on Thursday and is charged with organizing the murder of several entrepreneurs 15 years ago. The governor could face up to life in prison if found guilty of the charges that he denies. Fogel swept to power in 2018 after defeating a rival from ruling United Russia party that backs President Vladimir Putin. Video footage showed people chanting, "Fogel is our choice." One protester said Fogel did everything for the region, including building orphanages and improving roads. Turkey has slammed the international condemnation over the decision to change the status of Hagia Sophia from a museum to a mosque. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said it represented his country's will to use its sovereign rights. President Erdogan said Muslim prayers will begin at the UNESCO World Heritage Site on July 24th. Erdogan called upon everyone to respect the decisions made by Turkey's judicial and executive authorities. The Turkish leader said the process of turning Hagia Sophia into a mosque will take up to 6 months. The United Nations agency UNESCO has urged Istanbul to immediately open a dialogue to preserve the monument's status as a heritage site. Poland is voting in a knife-edge final round of the presidential election that may shape the country's future relations with the European Union. In the first round of polls held on 28th June, incumbent Andrzej Duda took a lead but failed to achieve an all-out majority. Duda is facing Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski in today's final runoff election. Duda has strongly backed most of the government's changes to the judiciary that the EU says have undermined the rule of law. The president is an ally of the ruling Law and Justice Party, and if he loses, the opposition can force a big change in the politics. Polish president holds the power of veto, and Trzaskowski says if he is elected, he will block legislation that he believes will undermine democratic norms. The UK has announced a £705 million package to boost infrastructure and recruit more staff on Britain's border. This comes as the UK prepares to leave the European Union Customs Union at the end of the year. Cabinet Office Minister Michelle Gove says additional money will pay for new border control posts and 500 extra border force staff. The new funding will include up to £470 million to build port and inland infrastructure and £235 million for IT systems and staffing. Meanwhile, the opposition Labour Party has accused the government of laziness in its preparations for the end of transition period. In Mali, 4 people have been killed after violence erupted against economic woes and disputed elections in Bamako. Witnesses said that security forces fired live rounds during violent confrontations with the protesters. They are demanding the resignation of President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. Earlier, the president dissolved the Constitutional Court in a bid to calm the protests. The court has been at the center of controversy after it overturned provisional results for parliamentary elections in March. In the U.S., 2 police officers have been shot dead in the McAllen city of southern Texas state. Police said Adelmiro Garza Jr. and Ismail Chavez were responding to a disturbance call at a home when the suspect shot them at the door. In a statement, the local police chief said the shooting occurred so quickly that the officers could not even draw their weapons. He said the suspect, Alden Carmio, died by suicide after being confronted by the security officials. Police said Carmio had a history of arrests, but the officers were not expecting a deadly assault and were not wearing body cameras. In a tweet, Texas Governor Greg Abbott paid tribute to the officers for their sacrifice in the line of duty to protect the community. We're now taking a short break, but stay tuned for more news. Welcome back. Russia's Forest Service says there are nearly 300 wildfires blazing across the country's northern wilderness in Siberia. Freakishly warm weather has broken past monthly records across large swathes of Siberia since January. The country's emergency services says there is currently no danger to populated areas. The Forest Service attempted to contain them with methods including explosives and cloud seeding. Russia's Aerial Forest Protection Service said it was trying to suppress 136 fires over 43,000 hectares of Saturday. The European Union's Climate Monitoring Network says the fires have broken the region's 17-year record of carbon emission. A 5.1 magnitude earthquake has jolted Tangshan city in China's northern Hebei province. No casualties have been reported so far. China's Earthquake Network Center says the epicenter was at a depth of 10 kilometers in Goye district of the Tangshan city. The quake was followed by 2 smaller quakes. The earthquakes have cut off electricity and water supplies in some areas, while temporarily halting railway service in the region. On 28 July 1976, an earthquake of magnitude 7.8 struck Tangshan, which killed over 242,000 people. In China, a village in central Henan province has shaken off poverty and attracted many youths to come back and start businesses in their hometown. This report has more.
In the past, Miao people in Shibadong village used to migrate to bigger cities for jobs due to mountainous local terrain and unfertile soil. But since 2013, the village has developed rapidly with the implementation of the targeted poverty alleviation policy.
When I was a primary and junior high school student, many people in our village left their homes and shut their houses tight throughout the year. Back then, I felt our village was too quiet and deserted.
Local farmers planted special agricultural products under the guidance of experts. After 3 years of development, the average annual income of the people in the village has increased from about $229 to $257. The whole village has been lifted out of poverty, and many young local residents, including she, have chosen to come back.
Our village has seen great changes in recent years, with convenient transportation and easy access to wireless network today. I want to use the knowledge and technologies I've learned to help build a better hometown.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought a temporary lull to the village's tourism business, but locals say the quick recovery in business has boosted their confidence.
China has raised its flood response alert to the second highest grade as downpours continue to batter regions along the Yangtze River. State media says the eastern provinces of Jiangsu and Jiangxi are among those worst hit by the floods. Regional flooding in China's Lake Pyong has caused water levels to surge above historical 22.52 meters and well above the alert level of 19.50 meters. Provincial military authorities have dispatched thousands of soldiers to help bolster nearly 9 kilometers of the lake's banks to prevent them from bursting. The Ministry of Water Resources said since early July, 212 rivers have exceeded alerting levels, including 19 of them rising to historical highs. Torrential rains and flooding have caused over $8.57 billion of economic losses to China. The most visited theme park in the world, Walt Disney World, has reopened after 4 months. The opening of the Disney flagship park in Orlando, Florida, comes as the state continues to report high numbers of COVID-19 cases.
Florida has emerged as an epicenter of COVID-19 infections in the U.S., with over 254,000 cases. Still, many Disney fans and workers were eager for Disney World to open its gates. Mickey Mouse waved to visitors from a distance as the park opened to the public. Plexiglass separated rows in lines and ground markings indicated where people should stand. A limited number of guests visited the Magic Kingdom and the Animal Kingdom. Disney is requiring all visitors over the age of 2 to wear masks and undergo temperature screenings. The resort has also posted signs encouraging physical distancing. Disney says it has trained a group of employees to nudge guests who become lax about the rules. The resort has suspended parades, fireworks, and other activities that create crowds, as well as up-close encounters with Mickey Mouse, Cinderella, and other characters. Instead, these characters appear on floats or on horseback.
We're now taking a short break, but stay tuned for more news. Now in business, most major stock markets in the Gulf have gained ahead of the flurry of corporate results that begins after July 15th each year. The Denmark properties jumped over 14%, lifting the buy share index by 0.5%. Saudi Arabia's benchmark index gained close to 0.5%, with Al Rajhi and Riyadh Bank contributing to the uptick. The Abu Dhabi index is trading up marginally, supported by an almost 1% gain in First Abu Dhabi Bank. In Qatar, the index edged up fractionally, driven by a 2% increase in Qatar gas transport. For Qatar National Bank, the Gulf's largest lender, traded flat ahead of its first quarter earnings announcement. Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.